Welcome everybody to Northwoods and Music tonight and Peter White Public Library. My name is Marty Acketts and I am the Adult Programming Coordinator for Peter White Public Library. Most of you here know that. I'm talking to the people out in YouTube land who may not know that. Just a couple groups that I need to thank before we move on with the show tonight. One is the Friends of Peter White Public Library, who provided all the live streaming equipment that we have. So if you are watching this on YouTube, you need to thank the Friends of Peter White Public Library, who support so much of what we do here at the library. They're wonderful. And then also I need to thank the Carol Paul Trust Memorial Fund that pays for all the musical entertainment you see. So these two people here with guitars that you see, that's courtesy of the Carol Paul Memorial Trust Fund. So a really wonderful resource for us here. And I'm just going to make you aware of a few things that are coming up. You know, I was looking at the December thing and I was like, holy cow, we're already on the back side of the December sheet, which just frightens me. I got to get my Christmas shopping done. For this week, tomorrow is All Booked Up, which is the new book club that we have in conjunction with WLUC. So we're going to be on the Tia and Elizabeth morning show at 9 o'clock. And then at 11 o'clock, you can come with us to the courtyards and have lunch with us and talk more about the book. And guess what? You don't really have had to have read the book just to show up and eat and talk with us if you want to do that. So that's tomorrow. And then this Friday, we have Global Cinema upstairs in the Shiras Room at 12 noon. And this month, it's going to be Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, which won the 2019 Best Picture, South Korean movie. Fantastic film. If you've never seen it, give yourself a Christmas gift and come and see that. And then coming up next week, Tuesday, we have Ellen Longsworth, who's a celebrated art historian. She's going to be talking about the New York School on Zoom. And then if you don't have anything to do on December 23rd, we're kicking off a new film series called Blockbusting Cinema, and we're going to be showing Where the Crawdads Sing, and that will be down here next Friday at 12 noon in the community room. So lots of other stuff going on. There's also the January programming sheet here for adult programs. Welcome, and now I'm going to turn things over to our host, B.G. Bradley.
Thank you. Well, it's time again for Northwoods and Music. Welcome to our Christmas show, featuring two-time UP Poet Laureate, Marty Acketts. Singer-songwriter, Steve Hooper, also known as Under This Cold Sky. Streaking in Tongues, featuring Ronnie Ferguson. And our guest star tonight, Jackie Love. Woo! And me, the old storyteller, B.G. Bradley. Now, at the close of the show, there are some wonderful books and CDs in the back. Support the local arts.
And I forgot to mention, too, that this is a fundraiser for Jansen House and Room at the Inn. So if you feel so inclined, we got a basket back there. And also, if you're watching online, you can donate, go to the events page, and there's links that you can donate there. So.
Okay, we're going to start you off tonight with a poem that Marty and I wrote for just this occasion.
Tree Faith.
Somebody skied over this ridge between these leafless maples
and left parallel lines that seem to be flashing flat smiles.
Snow settles in my bones as I wonder who made these tracks.
There are acts of faith in this weather.
There are acts of stars and searching.
Who goes?
Who goes there?
I say into the north wind.
The maples shudder, turn their backs to me.
Being a tree is an act of faith.
perhaps through all seasons to come, content and expectation, enlivened
with quiet longing are the means, the ends. Tree faith.
Still, this track over White Coal Ridge beckons me.
As any path beckons to be followed through snow or mud or desert sand,
Towards some unseen destination, moving with faith
as simple as a maple leaf.
Now I'd like to introduce again my friend, my collaborator, and my former student, Steve Hooper, Under This Cold Sky.
Thank you, Beach. Well, this is a Christmas song. It's a Christmas song that I wrote, and it's from a project I did that's kind of a bunch of songs all about childhood nostalgia, warm, wonderful feelings, and spending time with family and all that nice stuff. This is a Christmas song, and it kind of just is. It's a nice feel-good song about childhood Christmases of long ago. So, gather around the fire, and this is Christmas Eve on Pine Street. Downtown Christmas lights are still the same. The city's hung them every year since '93. And they stood bright and barren sidewalks, even though they're worn and frayed. And I hope that's how it always will be. We might have Christmas clearance, mini lights. 5, 6 o'clock, all the stores are closed. Candlelight church service, and then it's off to Grandma's place. Pack that Windstar full of presents and casseroles. I put a Ford Windstar in a song. When Congress is packed, the regulars and visitors tonight. Outside, smokers have a tray, breathing ghosts. And through the hazy amber glow of Miller, Coors, and Christmas light, stand oldish and the nativity amidst the snow. It's Christmas Eve on Pine Street once again. White lights on the tree with red and gold. Presents from the attic wrapped up tightly since September. Oh, this time and place will never grow old. Thank you. I'm going to switch it up a little bit here and play you an instrumental piece here of an old Christmas favorite. I might grab a chair for this one.
you write as much as I do, which is every day, beginning at 4 o'clock in the morning, people sometimes ask you a fairly obvious question. What are you doing? Why do you do that? What drives you to do that every day, all the time? And it's been many, many years. It goes all the way back to when I was probably 10, 11 years old. I couldn't help it. I had things in my head that I had to write down. But there's no real good way to answer that question, why do you write, that makes any sense in everyday life. So naturally I took it in a poem and saw what I could do with it. This poem is called Since You Ask. I write because my spirit breathes in words. Because every nighttime sky is more lovely than the last. And this starts my wayward thoughts working. And every sunrise starts my pen across the next blank page. I write because children laugh in different keys. And I want to see if a new laughing note will sound so that I can be the first to describe it. That could save us all. I write because some mornings I simply have to put words down in order to sort out all the blue and the red and the black and the green and the gray and all the events of the day and all the ways we love and fail to love, all the be-all, the end-all, and the all-out, or I will die. I write because my windows spatter with rain and ice and snow, gleam and fade to amber with summer and fall light, and someone has to mark that passing. I write because my dog softly snoring on the rug looked like the breath of heaven lying dormant on earth. Because my fingers feel a rhythm and must reveal it to my mind and heart in a tap, tap, tap on a laptop keyboard. Because my writing is a pry bar that I work into the hidden jamb of a door inside a lost copse deep in a hemlock wood, near great, deep, rumbling, murmuring, dreaming water. I work the bar until I can hardly stand or think, and sometimes the door breathes out perfumed air from a strange world that will not budge further, and rarer times it springs open, and my first prayerful pry reveals suns and stars and roving planets and singing satellites and hills on some wide-eyed, jaw-dropping sphere. Hills that weary me if I even contemplate a climb under red-purple skies. And there are winds there that threaten to take me away forever and forever. And then they do. And I ride, and I am unafraid. And after forever is done, there is more forever, and more stars, and more smiles, and missives from distant myriad earths, and all, and finally, the air leaves me breathless and fainting in free fall. And I must return in a moment to find myself outside the door, inside the copse, once again. I write because the light in a sentence is like the faces in dreams. Some you know, some you don't, but used to know. Others you will come to know if this all continues long enough. So my fingers have to keep moving. See, my fingers, that's the way of walking into new minds and other songs and water working its way up and around me and beckoning me down to that distant river mouth among the tamaracks I'd seen before and knew before I was born. I write because very long ago I lost someone I love and I no longer remember her voice, and I type and scribble and mumble away half frantic, then pause and listen, trying to hear her voice again. I write because there's a bear who has been following me since I was born, And I think we used to play in the clearing at the east end of the lake, just this side of the islands and the river, and we haven't played in a long time. And when I go to the clearing now, I know that he is there, but that he is hiding. He's afraid that if I see him again, I will not know him, or I will be afraid of him because he's seen his own reflection in the still lake water and it scared him. Or that in old age I will suddenly weaken in so sweet a memory of our childish play long ago, and then remembering I will die. And he doesn't want me to die, because then there will be no hope at all of the bare child games again, and the unspoken love we felt and still feel. I feel it deep in the hidden chambers of my heart, and he feels it always, always, in every step of every one of his lumbering days. The poor bear. The poor bear. I'm coming to see you, and I swear I won't die. Please come out, and we can play again. Yes, I'll write down all the rules of the game and leave it in a place where bears can read, right on our old slab of granite near our stillest water. I promise I will meet you there. We'll share the day. We'll share all our old ways. You'll see. I write because voices call to me from just to my left, and I turn to hear an exhalation of someone who wants to live, and only I can give him life, give her life, make their histories open for others so that they can interact and have being and be funny and cruel and compassionate and obstinate and frustrated and ecstatic and sad. And as I understand it, if you are such a character from a book waiting to be born, you have to be very careful about how you approach an author. You can't be too cloying, not too abrasive, but honest, just honest, so that he will believe, she will believe, this author will believe and want to tell your story. And now, right now, I am writing down every raindrop on the cabin roof, how each falls, where each ends, and the story of each and every beginning, high in the greens and blues and browns and low in the depths of light. And I will write down every raindrop until I can't, and then I will dream every new dawn until the rain stops and I wake up in the light. And that is my promise. And that is why I write. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now Marty and Ronnie are going to come to the stage now with some wonderful Christmas poetry and a Christmas story that you're going to love.
Thank you, BG. Let's give BG another hand. He is the 2022 Writer of the Year Market Art Award. Wow. I don't like following him usually, and now you know why. So yeah, as BG said, I'm going to read you a few Christmas poems. It's back when I was first married and very poor, working at a bookstore, and we didn't have a whole lot to give people that Christmas. I decided to do what poets and writers do, which is they write something and give it to people. And it was a poem that we bought some nice paper and bought some cheap frames from Walmart and gave it to everybody. And they loved that poem. And like the next year, when we actually had some money and were able to buy stuff, people said, "Where's my poem?" So I've been doing this for close over 30 years now. I'm writing a poem every Christmas. So this is a few of the poems. These are going to be a few of the poems that I've read. This is one of the earlier ones. This was about 2 or 3 years after my daughter was born. And this one is called "The Hand of God." A coming of winter day, the air half rain, half snow. A neighbor stretches on a ladder, strings a curtain of icicle lights from his eaves. Rain has already washed the shadows of maple leaves from the sidewalk. The way shadows washed into dark puddles in Hiroshima, the first rain after the bomb. Rinsing lovers off bedroom walls, children off school sidewalks, a priest off church nave marble. This mid-November, war is in the air. In the dark, low clouds. In the news broadcasts of body counts in Iraq. Predictions for snow tomorrow. Tonight, I will carry my daughter to bed, say prayers with her, sing her a lullaby. She curls her small fingers around my thumb, holds on, leads me into the darkness, saying, "Don't worry, Daddy." Thank you. So the next one I'm going to read is actually that first poem that I wrote for people, it's the title of it comes from one of, actually it is my favorite Christmas carol, In the Bleak Midwinter. Hardly anybody knows this carol, but it is so beautiful. It's just the most beautiful carol you'll ever want to hear. And so this one is set in Ishpeming, this poem. I'm a cemetery walker. I love walking through cemeteries and looking at old headstones and seeing the history. So that's sort of where this poem comes from, and it's In the Bleak Midwinter. In the Ishpeming Cemetery, a statue of the Virgin Mary stands over the grave of a 9-year-old boy. My mother once told me myrrh was a spice used in death, that Mary knew her baby would die. In the dark, the statue glows like carved moonlight. The first time I saw the Virgin at night, I looked up into her face, her forehead smooth as ice, her eyes white and liquid, her cheeks stained as if she had been crying blood. This holiday season, I work my fingers raw, making wreaths, winding and pulling. I feel the string digging into the creases of my knuckles. Sap stains my skin black. And for days, I cannot make a fist without my hands splitting open, my blood smelling like cedar. Tonight, snow is falling on the ground like notes from a flute, wavering and delicate. The Virgin shines, catches flakes in the palms of her outstretched hands. A Christmas wreath rests on the grave before her. Its ribbon bears 2 words in gold, beloved son. I imagine the boy's mother kneeling at Mary's feet, placing the wreath the way the Magi placed the myrrh, her heart swelling with sorrow. Thank you. So I've got one more poem to read. You know, not all my poems are really sad and depressing. I promise you that. However, this next one... So I wrote this one back in 2014 on the 100th anniversary of the Christmas truce of 1914. And some of you might know that story, how on the front in World War I, in the foxholes there was British soldiers and German soldiers and French soldiers. And on Christmas Eve, they all decided to lay down their weapons and come out of the foxholes and celebrate Christmas together. And they helped each other bury their dead. And it became a really famous event in World War I. And so I wrote this poem on the 100th anniversary of that Christmas truce. So this poem is called Truce 1914. Between Stille Nacht and Adeste Fidelis, they came together in that no man's place, climbed from the trenches, eyed each other like distant cousins at a family reunion. The German boy maybe gave the British boy fruitcake soaked in whiskey because they both missed their mothers. Maybe they showed each other snapshots, younger brothers, dead grandpas, pretty sisters. They pointed at them, said names. Benjamin, Opa Franz, Beatrice. Candles stuttered in fir trees. The dead littered the earth, staring into the dark heavens, frozen in the violent moment of payment. The cost of conflict. These enemies, these brothers helped each other bury their friends, prayed together, and peace fell on them that Christmas Eve like snow. It was soft, quiet. It felt like a coming home, where everybody is happy to see each other after a long season of separation. That is what I hold on to 100 years later, that they looked into each other's eyes, saw something familiar, foreign, wondrous, hope, newborn, naked, fragile as a mother's lullaby on a winter's night. Thank you. So, among some of the other things that I do in my life, many other things, I'm also a church musician. And if you've ever been a church musician, this time of year is one of those times where you're ready to go home and knock yourself silly every night, truly. I was, for many, many years, over 20-some years, I was the accompanist for my church's Christmas Eve program with the kids, right? And so this essay that I'm going to read to you, share with you, is based on that experiences. However, I will say that the names have been changed, okay, to protect myself, from the people that I'm talking about. Anyway, this is called The Christmas Eve Wrinkle. For 5 years, I had been roped into being the accompanist for St. Jude's Children's Christmas Eve Mass. For 5 years, I banged out Silent Night for tinsel-winged, gum-chewing, bathrobed, and foil-crowned angels, Marys, Josephs, shepherds, and kings. And after each of those years, I had gone home, eggnogged myself silly, and tried to survive the holidays with what was left of my sputtering Christmas spirit. It usually started out at the beginning of October, and this year seemed no different. Mrs. Janice, a mother of the twin terrors of last year's Heavenly Host, approached me one Sunday. "Oh, Jeremy and Justin are so looking forward to being in the choir again this year." Dr. and Mrs. Bingley, parents of a 2-year Shepherd alumnus, had said to me during a chance meeting at the IGA, "Well, I hope little Matt has a shot at Joseph this year." Andrew Elbow's mother and father, holding the same high aspirations for their son, volunteered for the Christmas Decorating Committee, the Christmas Bazaar Organizing Committee, the Christmas Adult Choir, and the Christmas Bell Ringing Committee. Finally, the hammer had fallen. Father George, beloved pastor of St. Jude's, had pulled me aside after choir practice one Wednesday, laid a quaking hand on my shoulder, and sighed, "Well, I guess it's about time to get the children's Christmas Eve Mass rolling." And so ensued a flurry of announcements, bedsheet costuming, telephone calls, prodding stage parents, and for me, 2 months of Saturday morning rehearsals with 20 off-key 7-year-olds under the direction of Theta Creed. retired kindergarten teacher, an unchallenged Führer of the Christmas Eve program. Now, boys and girls, we must all use our best singing voices. Theta marched up and down in front of the children, waving sheet music in their faces. Remember who's going to be out there. It's going to be Mommy and Daddy and Grandma and Grandpa and brother and sister. A whole church full of people are going to be here to listen and watch you sing and read. They're not here for their health. So sing nicely. Theta glared at her charges and smile. I waited and watched for the usual array of mishaps, calamities, and setbacks. First came little Tony Dickens's disappearance into the room behind the organ pipes and the 2-hour search that resulted. Then there was sweet Mary Agnes's refusal to once again be relegated to the angel choir when she was obviously Mary material. And of course, there was the whole messy business of explaining how God was Jesus' father when Mary was married to Joseph. I witnessed all of these things and saw the days of December slowly climb into the double digits. Nothing completely shocking happened, unless you count J.J. Fiedler wetting his pants in front of the altar. No major casualties, no lawsuits, no unexpected wrinkles, until I just want to try something a little different. Hector Hicks fairly glowed with Yuletide joy. Father George eyed him uncertainly. I'm not sure, He looked at Theta's tight-lipped expression and then at me. It would seem more, appropriate to, He looked at Theta again. Once the children remove their costumes, I don't. Something special, Father George. Hector smiled. I don't seem to be, Father George floundered. Theta's foot began to tap. Perhaps I began, Mr. Hicks. Theta geared up. I don't really know if I only wish to underscore the true meaning of Christmas, Miss Creed. Hector saw Theta's cheeks flush. Just as you do every year with all your underappreciated work. Well, Theta's eyes narrowed suspiciously. You do such a wonderful job every time. Hector took her hand, and all out of the goodness of your heart. Theta smiled. Yes. She removed her hand from his hand. Yes, well, we all want to show the children what Christmas is all about. And you have such a natural rapport with them, too. Hector shrugged. I don't know how you do it. For me, you're enough to inspire any Christmas. And then I heard it. It was a sound frighteningly foreign, like a rusty hasp being pried open. Theta Creed giggled. What was your idea, Mr. Hicks? She linked arms with Hector and led him away. On Christmas Eve, I sat on the organ bench, the music for Joy to the World spread out before me, waiting for Theta's signal to play the final song. The entire program had come off with relatively few hitches. Parents had delivered their children on time. The wise men had tripped only once during their entrance, causing a slight domino effect through the shepherds. Mary didn't drop the baby, Jesus, as she carried him to the manger. The angels had remembered to remove the gum from their mouths. Joseph even managed to put his arm around Mary. And now, everyone waited for Theta's signal. But Theta didn't signal. Reggie Fiedler, JJ's brother, fidgeted with his bath/shepherd's robe, and Pauline Paisley straightened her coat hanger wings, and Jeremy Janis, one of the three kings, traded his gold for his brother Justin's frankincense. But Theta didn't signal. Someone in the first pew coughed. A kneeler banged to the floor. Arms throughout the congregation waved in the air as jackets were pulled on. But Theta didn't signal. She simply stood before the children at the head of the church, holding her music in front of her, smiling strangely. Father George looked at me. I shrugged. The door at the rear of the church opened, and all heads turned. Santa Claus stepped in. He stood unmoving for a few seconds, meeting everyone's gaze, and then slowly began walking up the center aisle. The buckles of his boots chinged in the silence. The children's choir was going into paroxysms of whispering and pointing. J.J. Feebler had his arm tucked between his legs and was doing a jig. The kings had abandoned their precious glittery gifts, and the angels were crowding the shepherds. I looked at Father George, and Father George shrugged. Santa didn't stop in front of the children when he reached the altar. Quietly, he crossed to the manger scene displayed by the side entrance. He knelt before the crib, folded his mittened hands, and bowed his whiskered head. Mary and Joseph stopped elbowing. The angels stopped pushing. The shepherds stopped whispering. The wise men stopped poking. JJ stopped jigging. Everyone watched Santa. After almost half a minute, Santa stood. He looked at the children. He looked at Theta. He looked at me. Then he looked at Father George, and he nodded. Father George nodded back. Santa left by the side entrance. Theta never gave the signal. She closed her music and tucked it under her arm. She straightened her jacket, reached down, and sniffed the corsage pinned to her lapel. She walked over to the organ. "Merry Christmas, Martin," Theta said, and smiled. Then she quietly left by the side entrance. I stared after her. After a few moments, parents began to come up and collect their children. Wings disappeared under winter coats, halos under stocking caps. Hugs and handshakes were exchanged, but the church remained as silent as snow. I turned off the organ and began packing up my music. Who was that? I looked up into the face of Dr. Bingley. Who was that? Dr. Bingley repeated, hooking a thumb toward the manger. I shrugged and smiled. Santa Claus. I picked up my music. Make sure Matt comes out for the choir next year, Doc. I began walking away. He's sure to have a shot at Joseph. Thank you. So when you see the church organist this Christmas, be extra kind to them. They've been through a lot the last few months. So tonight we are celebrating O. Henry, and this is our last event in the O. Henry holidays that we've been doing this month here at Peter White Public Library. And to commemorate that, we're going to do a special dramatic performance of course, O. Henry's most famous short story, The Gift of the Magi. And we have some wonderful performers, Jackie Love and B.G. Bradley, and myself and Ronnie are all going to be participating in this. And it's a script written by a really fabulous, fabulous writer, award-winning writer, two-time UP Poet Laureate. Anyway, and it's a world premiere. You're at a world premiere tonight for this, okay? So there we go. So here we go. This play is called The Gift of the Magi. This is a Christmas story about a Christmas story. Like most Christmas stories, it begins on a cold December night. The year is 1905 in New York City. William Sidney Porter is sitting in his apartment on the first floor of 55 Irving Place, just across the street from his favorite watering hole, Pete's Tavern. Now, most people don't know who William Sidney Porter is, at least not by that name, or Will, or Bill, or Billy. But if Bill had walked into Pete's Tavern and ordered a whiskey, chances are he wouldn't have had to pay for that drink, because everyone knew him by another name, a name that had been making people laugh and cry and laugh again for years and years. That name was O. Henry. But that December night, over 120 years ago, Bill was what most writers usually are: unemployed and depressed and broke. You see, Bill's boss at New York World Magazine had recently decided that paying Bill $100 a week for a new short story was just way too much money. It didn't help that Bill, because of his drinking, often missed his deadlines. So that boss fired Bill. On that December night in 1905, Bill was sitting in his apartment, possibly trying to figure out how he was going to make rent that month, when a knock came on his door.
Who is it?
It's Artie from New World Magazine, Mr. Henry.
There's nobody by that name here. Go away.
I can't do that, sir.
Bill stormed across the apartment and flung open that door to find a meek man standing before him. Bill recognized him as one of the magazine's staff artists.
Listen, your bosses canned me. I don't work for them anymore, so kindly remove yourself from my doorstep. Go away!
Mr. Henry, you owe the magazine a story.
What are you talking about? They fired me. I was too expensive for them.
But Mr. Henry...
That is not my name.
According to your contract, Mr. O, you owe New World Magazine one more story for the Christmas issue per your contract. It's due tonight.
Tell your bosses they will get a new story for me over my pickled, dead body.
I can't do that, sir.
Why not?
Because they'll fire me, sir.
And why should I care about that?
You don't have to, sir, Mr. O. It's just that I don't want to lose my job this close to Christmas.
Looks like I won't be the only person unemployed this Christmas then.
But, sir, I don't want to disappoint my Ella.
Who the devil's Ella?
My wife, sir. She works so hard all day, every day, bulldozing the grocer and the vegetable man and butcher, just to save enough money to have meals on the table and keep our little apartment pretty and clean. I can't go home and tell her I've lost my job this close to Christmas. We have so little as it is.
This girl had to have known you weren't a rich man when she married you.
She did, Mr. O.
Call me Bill.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bill. Ella knew she was marrying a poor artist, but she says we have each other, and that's all that matters.
I was in love with a girl like that once. She loved me the same, even though I was a wretched failure at everything. I would have given her the crown jewels if I could have afforded them.
My Ella would sell the hair off her beautiful head to make me happy.
Sell the hair off her beautiful head. My poor wife would have done that too.
Bill regarded Artie in silence for a few moments, and then a smile came to his face. It was the first time he'd smiled in a long, long time.
Artie, did you bring your sketch pad with you?
I beg your pardon, Mr. Bill?
Your sketch pad. Do you have it?
Yes, right here.
Good. Sit down at this table and draw.
Draw? Draw what?
This room.
This room? There's hardly anything in it.
Exactly. Make it even poorer than it actually is.
Horror?
Yes. And then put a young man and a young woman in it sitting side by side.
What are they doing in this room?
They're doing what Magi do, Artie. Sacrificing everything they have.
Wait, where are you going?
To Pete's Tavern, my boy. I have a story to write. I'll be back.
William Sidney Porter, O. Henry, wrote one of the greatest Christmas stories ever that night, one that has endured season after season, Christmas after Christmas, for close to 125 years now. He wrote it in 2 feverish hours. Some people say it was a story inspired by alcohol and poverty and desperation. Some people say it was a love letter to his lost wife. You be the judge. $1.87. That was all. And 60 cents of it was in pennies. Pennies saved 1 and 2 at a time by bulldozing the grocer and the vegetable man and the butcher until one's cheeks burned with the silent imputation of parsimony that such close dealing implied. 3 times Della counted it. $1.87. And the next day would be Christmas.
Not enough. Not enough. No matter how much I scrimp and save, I'll never be able to show Jim how much I love him. And he works so hard every day.
There was clearly nothing to do but flop down on the shabby little couch and howl. So Della did it. She and her husband lived in a furnished flat with her husband's name affixed to the letterbox, Mr. James Dillingham Young. Rent was $8 per week, which didn't seem extravagant when Jim had been earning $30 per week. Due to the changing times, he was now earning $20 per week, and $20 a week doesn't go far. Expenses had been greater than she had calculated. They always are. Only $1.87 to buy a present for Jim. Her Jim. Many a happy hour she had spent planning for something nice for him, something fine and rare and sterling, something just a little bit near to being worthy of the honor of being owned by Jim.
What am I going to do? Christmas is tomorrow, and I have nothing worthy enough to give my Jim.
Della finished her cry and attended to her cheeks with a powder rag in front of the flat's only mirror, a pier glass between the windows of the room. She gazed at her slender reflection.
I had so wanted to show my darling Jim how much I loved him this Christmas.
Suddenly, she froze, her eyes shining brightly, but her face had lost its color. Rapidly, she pulled down her hair and let it fall to its full length.
Yes, yes, of course. Why didn't I think of this before?
Now, there were 2 possessions of the James Dillingham Youngs in which they both took a mighty pride. One was Jim's gold watch that had been his father's and his grandfather's. The other was Della's hair. Had the Queen of Sheba lived in a flat across the air shaft, Della would have let her hair hang out the window someday to dry just to depreciate Her Majesty's jewels and gifts. Had King Solomon been the janitor with all his treasures piled up in the basement, Jim would have pulled out his watch every time he passed, just to see him pluck at his beard with envy. So now Della's beautiful hair fell about her, rippling and shining like a cascade of brown waters. It reached below her knee and made itself almost a garment for her. And then she did it up again, nervously and quickly.
I shall do it. Jim will have a wonderful Christmas.
On went her old brown jacket, on went her old brown hat. With a whirl of skirts and with a brilliant sparkle still in her eyes, she fluttered out the door and down the stairs to the street. When she stopped, the sign read, Madame Sophronie's hair goods of all kind. One flight up, Della ran and collected herself, panting. Madame Sophronie was large, too white, and chilly.
Will you buy my hair?
Buy my hair? Take your hat off and let's have a sight and see what it looks at. Down rippled the brown cascade. Very nice. Madame lifted it with practiced hands. $20, not a penny.
Give it to me quick.
The next 2 hours tripped by on rosy wings. Della ransacked the stores looking for Jim's present and finally found it. The perfect gift.
My darling Jim, this is what he deserves. It will show him how much I love him.
It was a platinum fob chain, simple and chaste in design, properly proclaiming its value by substance alone and not by meretricious ornamentation, as all good things should do. It was even worthy of the watch. As soon as she saw it, she knew that it must be Jim's. It was like him, quietness and value. The description applied to both. $21 they took from her for it, and she hurried home with 87 cents.
With this chain on the watch, my darling might be properly anxious about the time in any company without shame. He won't have to be ashamed of that old leather strap he's been using instead. Everyone will see him as I see him every day, a man of worth and substance.
When Della reached home, her intoxication gave way a little to prudence and reason. She got out her curling irons and lighted the gas and went to work repairing the ravages made by generosity added to love. Within 40 minutes, her head was covered with tiny, close-lying curls that made her look wonderfully like a truant schoolboy. She looked at her reflection in the mirror long, carefully, and critically.
If Jim doesn't kill me, before he takes a second look at me, he'll say I look like a Coney Island chorus girl. But what could I do? What could I do with $1.87?
At 7 o'clock, the coffee was made and the frying pan was on the back of the stove, hot and ready to cook the chops. Jim was never late. Della doubled the fob chain in her hand and sat on the corner of the table near the door that he always entered. Then she heard his step on the stair away down on the first flight, and she turned white for just a moment. She had a habit for saying little silent prayers about the simplest everyday things, and now she whispered,
Please, God, make him think I'm still pretty.
The door opened, and Jim stepped in and closed it. He looked thin and very serious. Poor fellow, he was only 22, and to be burdened with a family. He needed a new overcoat, and he was without gloves. Jim stopped inside the door, as immovable as a setter at the scent of a quail. His eyes were fixed upon Della, and there was an expression in them that she could not read, and it terrified her. It was not anger, nor surprise, nor disapproval, nor horror, nor any of the sentiments that she had been prepared for.
Jim, darling, don't look at me that way. I had my hair cut off and sold it because I couldn't have lived through Christmas without giving you a present. It'll grow out again. You won't mind, will you? I just had to do it. My hair grows awfully fast. Say Merry Christmas, Jim, and let's be happy. You don't know what a beautifully nice gift I've gotten for you.
You cut off your hair.
Cut it off and sold it. Don't you like me just as well, anyhow? I'm me without my hair, ain't I?
Jim looked around the room curiously.
Your hair is gone.
You needn't look for it. It's sold, I tell you, sold and gone, too. It's Christmas Eve. Be good to me, for it went for you. Maybe the hairs of my head were numbered, but nobody could ever count my love for you. Shall I put the chops on, Jim?
Out of his trance, Jim seemed quickly to wake. He enfolded his Della for 10 seconds. Let us regard with discreet scrutiny, some inconsequential object in the other direction. $8 a week or $1 million a year, what is the difference? A mathematician or a wit would give you the wrong answer. The Magi brought valuable gifts, but that was not among them. Jim drew a package from his overcoat pocket and placed it upon the table.
Don't make any mistake, Del, about me. I don't think there's anything in the way of a haircut or a shave or a shampoo that could make me like my girl any less. But if you'll unwrap that package, you may see why you had me going a while at first.
White fingers and nimble tore at the string and paper, and then an ecstatic scream of joy, and then, alas, a quick change to hysterical tears. For there lay the combs, the set of combs side and back that Della had worshipped long in a Broadway window. Beautiful combs, pure tortoiseshell with jeweled rims, just the shade to wear in the beautiful vanished hair. They were expensive combs, she knew, and her heart had simply craved and yearned over them without the least hope of possession. And now they were hers. But the tresses that should have adorned the coveted adornments were gone. She hugged them to her bosom, and at length she was able to look up with dim eyes and smile and say,
My hair grows so fast, Jim.
And then Della leaped up like a singed cat. Jim had not yet seen his beautiful present. She held it out to him eagerly upon her open palm. The dull, precious metal seemed to flash with the reflection of her bright and ardent spirit.
Isn't it a dandy, Jim? I hunted all over town to find it. You'll have to look at the time 100 times a day now. Give me your watch. I want to see how it looks on it.
Instead of obeying, Jim tumbled down on the couch and put his hands under the back of his head and smiled.
Del, let's put our Christmas presents away and keep them a while. They're too nice to use just as at present. I sold the watch to get the money to buy your combs. And now suppose you put the chops on.
The Magi, as you know, were wise men, wonderfully wise men, who brought gifts to the babe in the manger. They invented the art of giving Christmas presents. Being wise, their gifts were no doubt wise ones, possibly bearing the privilege of exchange in case of duplication. And here I have lamely related to you the uneventful chronicle of two foolish children in a flat who most unwisely sacrificed for each other the greatest treasures of their house. But in a last word to the wise of these days, let it be said that of all who give gifts, these two were the wisest. Of all who give and receive gifts, such as they are, wisest. Everywhere they are wisest. They are the Magi. William Sidney Porter wrote The Gift of the Magi in the space of 2 hours at Pete's Tavern that night. When he placed the final period on the page, maybe he ordered a beer. Or maybe he just sat at his table, watching all the regulars, laughing and talking and slapping each other on the back. All Jims, all Dellas, all Magi's. And maybe, just maybe, he smiled and whispered to the world,
Merry Christmas.
Silent
and God send you a happy new year. When I was a kid, in my hometown, Christmas caroling was a pretty big thing. And a lot of times you'd be sitting in your house, and we'd be sitting in our house on Main Street, and we'd hear that song. We'd hear that song coming along down there near the street. And then we'd hear the sound of footsteps coming up our front porch. And then the snow, which my brothers and I hadn't shoveled off the porch, crunching underneath the feet. And then we'd go outside, and there would be faces. Faces that we knew. Faces of families. All of us knew each other. And we shared those songs together. It was part of Christmas. It accompanied the whole season. And went along with Patty and me and our classmates, having to sell Christmas cards, Christmas wrapping. By the way, I was the worst Christmas salesman of all time. I'd knock on the door, somebody would come, and I would say, "You don't want to buy any Christmas wrapping, do you?" Unbelievably, many of them did anyway. And then there was my mom, who was not always the happiest person, but at Christmas time, she was something else. She had secrets galore, and she hid presents everywhere. And my brothers and I, and my sister, would sneak around the house trying to find where the presents were hidden, and she was good because we never found them. And out there on Main Street were those Christmas decorations, which in my town were one of a kind. They were Italian, handmade, hand-sewn Christmas decorations, bells swinging back and forth in the snow. And there was a holiday basketball tournament. And there was Christmas trips to Marquette and Green Bay, those far-off exotic lands. And snow. Lots of snow. And those people on that porch were people that we knew. The Zagelmeyers and the Crickeys and the Rubiks and the Gormleys and the Hansons and the Leaparts and the Ennises, the Randolphs and the Bolios. There they were, singing these Christmas songs. And my mom and dad would always invite them in for some Christmas cheer. And my dad would invite them a little further in, down into the basement, so they could sample of something that he called garbage can Christmas punch. And a strange thing would happen when people would come up onto the porch and begin to sing. The fathers would kind of disappear. And we'd hear Christmas carols echoing up from the basement. And a lot of laughter. And then as time went on, then eventually the carolers would go on their way, and some of us would maybe join them, and we'd go all up and down the street, Christmas caroling over and over and over and over again. God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. Remember Christ our Savior was born on Christmas Day, to save us all from Satan's power when we have gone astray. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. Oh, come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant, oh come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels, and so forth, and so on. And that went on for years and years and years. And then something happened. I turned into a teenager, and I was too cool for caroling anymore. And a funny thing happened in the world about the same time. the world with lots of television and all kinds of other things to do suddenly started to become a little too cool for caroling also. And caroling kind of went away for years and years. I'd hear it, of course, you know, in Mass, Christmas Day, time leading up to that. But there was something hollow in the world, something missing. Then years later, I took up living in a new town, a little tiny town, not so much different from the one I grew up in, maybe even a little smaller. And I taught in the local school for years and years and years. And then one year, as my son started to grow up a little bit, I really got the itch for caroling again. And I went into my classroom one day and I looked out at the kids in my classroom and I thought, well, here's a ready bunch of carolers right here. How can I get them to do this? Well, I decided that the Bradleys were going to have a Christmas party. I made a little mistake in making that decision, though. I didn't tell Debbie, my wife, that that was going to happen. And when I said, hey, hon, we're going to have a Christmas party. We'll have 50, 60 kids over here, and we'll go out caroling. And she looked at me and she said, oh, we're going to have a Christmas party with 50 or 60 kids, and we're going to go out caroling. I see. But good sport that she is and always has been, she made the cookies, she got everything ready, and the kids came over. And it was pretty grand. We went out, first year, just a few of us, but as the years went on, more and more of us went out to our little town, walked around, went from house to house just like it was when I was a little kid, and we caroled and caroled and caroled. And one year, I had about 90 kids at the house. Way too many to fit in that little mining house, in that little old town. But they came in, and then we all went out caroling. And we were about in the middle of town, and it's not much of a town, so it didn't take us long to get there. And we were walking along, all 90 of us, and all of a sudden a state policeman pulled up. And now you got to understand, in this little town where I live, the state police never come there unless the place is going to burn down. I mean, unless something absolutely dreadful is happening. But a state policeman pulled up. And as I was standing there, I just looked, and this window rolled down. He could see I was the only adult in this group of people, and he said to me, "Are you guys caroling?" I said, "Well, yeah." And he started to laugh, and then he laughed harder and harder. He said, "Well, a little old lady called me up and said there was a big group of rioters out in the street over here in town." Well, that went on for years and years. And then something else happened. A year came when the kids didn't seem to know the words anymore. And I kept trying, I passed out sheet music, but year after year, fewer and fewer of them knew the words. I mean, I even resorted to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. They knew that. Thumpity thump. They knew that too. But even then, time passed, and even that became kind of foreign to them. And then they would come to the party still, but they were reluctant to go out into town and didn't really want to do caroling, and gradually it just kind of faded away. And we didn't go caroling anymore. But I still miss it. I miss it a lot. And I wish one more time, now that I'm retired, that I could just go out with those kids in our little town and go caroling. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to out, guys.
Thank
you
you
so
all.
much for coming, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.